Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. In this episode, I'm joined by fly tying guru Tim Flagler. While most of you know Tim from his tying videos and fly fishing show appearances, you may not know Tim spends a significant amount of time each year hosting fly fishing travel around the world. Tim and I take a deep dive into the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts of destination travel. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And a shout out to our sponsor, Trout Routes. It's a fact, none of us get to fish as much as we want. Almost overnight, planning a fishing trip went from a gazetteer and word of mouth to the entire internet. There have never been more resources available for fishing, but it's a challenge trying to wade through the digital noise to find the most current and relevant information. Spend less time surfing the internet and more time on the water with Trout Routes. With over 350,000 access points mapped across 50,000 trout streams and much more, Trout Routes has all the data you need to help you make the most of your time on the water. Where I fish in southern Appalachia, figuring out how to get off the water can be as important as finding it in the first place. With Trout Routes, I can mark the best spots to get out of the water so I don't find myself in a valley I can't climb out of as the sun goes down. Up your game and download the app today. Use code ARTFLY20, ARTFLY20, all one word, for 20% off of your Trout Routes Pro membership at maps.troutroutes.com. Now, on to our interview. Tim, welcome to the Articulate Fly.
Oh, it's good to be here, Marvin. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get together, and Tim, we have a tradition on the Articulate Fly. We like to ask all of our guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
Oh, earliest fishing memory. Not fly fishing, but fishing down at the Jersey Shore with my grandmother. She was the one that really got me fishing. My father didn't fish. Didn't know my grandfather on the one side, the grandfather on the other didn't fish. And my brothers and I spent a couple weeks every summer with my grandmother down at the Jersey Shore, and he was like a drill sergeant. So he had us up catching bait fish, and then we used the bait fish to catch bigger fish, and kind of like on Bugs Bunny when they do that routine. And finally up to decent sized flounder or bluefish in the ocean. So it was pretty cool.
Very neat. So when did you come to the dark side of fly fishing?
Not until college. And it freshman year in college up at St. Lawrence University in upstate New York, and it was one of those deals where freshman year, you're just, you're chatting with different people in your hall or in the dorm, and, what do you like to do? And a couple of us, figured out we like fishing. And so started fishing together, fall of freshman year. And I think it was like October maybe. And we were just spinning rods and things like that, Vep spinners, little Cleos, and out of nowhere, this guy this is up near the Adirondacks, guy comes out of the woods, and he kind of looked familiar. And I thought he was a conservation officer, maybe at first, and we maybe had a few too many fish. I'm not sure. Anyway, it turns out the reason he looked familiar is that we'd seen him around campus, and he was the head of the biology department at St. Lawrence. And I don't remember the exact way he said it, but in a nutshell, what he said was, we were no longer boys. We were St. Lawrence, and we were men, and men didn't use spinning rods. So he might, for like three of us, we were done. And it's been one of the things that, since that day, I've had little breaks from it, where I haven't totally quit fly fishing, but I've kind of done other things. But it's pretty much been a constant for the last 40 years for me since that day.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And so, in that kind of storied history of fly fishing, who are some of the folks that have mentored you on your journey?
Oh, I've been very, very lucky. Dr. Green was one. He really helped us out, as did some of the other folks up at St. Lawrence. He introduced us to some of the guys that worked in the physical plant up there, and they were also fly fishermen, as was the athletic director at the time. And then once I graduated, I came back to New Jersey, and probably the biggest influence on my fly fishing was a guy that owned the local fly shop here in Califon. His name was Les Shannon. He's no longer with us. He died of cancer quite a few years ago now. The shop is still there, though. It used to be Shannon's Fly and Tackle. Now it's South Branch Outfitters, new owners. But Les was a schooled kind of in the Catskill method of tying, particularly Catskill style dries. Excellent tyer, engineer by trade, but owned a little fly shop. And I was living in closer to Manhattan, working in there after college. But every night in season, I drive an hour west to here, Califon, and fish, and then go and stop. Les would be tying in the shop, and I'd stop in, and he helped me a ton with tying. And he was kind of a cranky old guy. That's, most people know him as being really cranky, and he was and real strict about how he wanted you to tie and everything. But they're lessons and kind of things that I've taken with me throughout my tying career. So yeah, I owe Les Shannon a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. While you were telling that story, it made me think about like how precise Dave Brandt was when he tied.
Exactly, and I'm telling you, Les was from that exact same school. Walt, Winnie, Deddy, Darby's, that whole Catskill group and kind of method of tying, and what just, it kills me to this day, Marvin. I'd gotten a whole bunch over the years collected. Les's flies that Les himself tied, and had them all organized, everything like that. And about 10 years ago, lost them all to bugs. They literally ate every single one. And it was one of those things, I thought I had them packed away well, and they, hadn't even looked at the collection in a while, and opened it up, and just, one of those, just irreplaceable. And he'd passed away by that point, so no way to get the flies back. Real bummer.
And so was your interest in fly tying, did it happen really quickly after you kind of got roped in college, or did it take a little while?
Yeah, and it was that was very much a part of it early on. What was the tying, and very, very simple stuff. I mean, ridiculously simple stuff. And but for me anyway, once I graduated and came back and was living in Summit, New Jersey, and working in the town next door, then I just became obsessed. Just bad. And getting off work and going home and tying for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and then getting up early in the morning and tying. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and so it's interesting. So you've been at this for a while, and I'm kind of curious, kind of what has kept you fly fishing and fly tying all these years, and how you didn't become a golfer or pick up another hobby, right?
Well, I kind of did. I'm one of those guys that I can't really do anything kind of halfway. I get pretty obsessive about things, and so in the time since then, I kept on fly fishing, but sometimes more than others. And my wife Joan and I moved to Califon, actually, as a result of fishing up here when we got married and everything like that. Most people will look at the school system, maybe the taxes, what's going on in the town. For me, it was that there's a beautiful trout stream that flows right through the center of town. There was a general store, a post office, and a fly shop. And so we've been here for almost 40 years now. Anyway, back to the question. In that time, I've also done things. I got hopelessly addicted to sailboarding for a long time, and sailed all over the East Coast anyway, Hawaii. And then it was shotgun sports for a while, and sporting clays and trap and all the stuff that goes along with that. And then for quite a few years, honestly, if you had asked me to choose between duck hunting and fly fishing, I probably would have chosen duck hunting. Really was into it. New Jersey, the Jersey Shore is very famous for it, and so was into that. But always in the background was fly fishing and fly tying. Never really forgot about it, but kind of came in waves.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So my rule would always be if I had a half a day, I'd go shoot sporting clays, and if I had a whole day, I'd go fishing.
Yes, perfect. So I have I have a barn and a basement full of former hobbies. You always say you're going to get back to them, but the fly fishing and fly tying is really taken over, and not a lot of time for between work and tying and fishing and hosting trips and all that good stuff. Not a lot of time for shooting sports or windsurfing anymore.
Yeah, maybe you should come to the fly fishing show and wear jams and good old OPT shirts and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I still got them. I don't think any of them fit anymore, but it's all good.
So, for a lot of us, our fishing season is kind of winding down. And I know you're out on the road a lot, not just with your hosted travel, but do you have any kind of memorable fishing adventures you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, I mean, honestly, really too many to remember. I did just get back from one in way northern British Columbia. Very northern end of the Rockies, and it was really special because my son Drew was with me, and he's joined our video production business and has really taken to fly fishing. He did other things throughout school and played lacrosse in college, but just in the last couple of years, he's gotten to be. We can't tell him this, Marvin, but he's gotten to be really good at fly fishing. Kind of pisses me off a little bit how quickly he picked it up, how well he casts, things like that. But anyway, we got to take a trip with Northern Rockies Adventures just a couple of weeks ago, really. Unbelievable place way up in British Columbia. And what made it so memorable, first of all, was fishing and shooting video with him. But secondly, we were able to, in just 4 or 5 days of fishing, we ended up getting truly trophy pike to 45 inches, bull trout, which for me is very, very unique, and lake trout, beautiful rainbow trout, big rainbow trout, grayling, and gosh, I guess we had a shot at walleye. Just a remarkable place, and to catch that variety of fish in really just a few days, pretty remarkable. So that's been a recent highlight, anyway.
Very neat. And before, it's kind of funny, right? Because we talked before we recorded, and we're doing kind of the pre-interview stuff that with guys like you and Tom that have been around and been interviewed a lot. I generally try to take a different approach. So, folks, we're going to talk about Tim's hosted trips here and his travel in a minute, but I do want to touch on your video and tying work. And I know that tyers are mad scientists, and they're always playing around with new materials and tools. And I was kind of curious if you have anything on your bench you want to share with our listeners.
Well, you're probably not going to want to hear this, Marvin, but I'm tying during this interview. I know that's bad. But a couple of materials I'm using that actually both of them are from Semperfli, and I only recently started using a lot of their materials, but two of them that are just real game changers for me anyway. One is the classic wax thread that they have in 12/0, amazingly strong stuff, thin diameter, just absolutely does everything you want it to, doesn't build up a lot of bulk, is quite strong, and it just goes on perfectly. The other one, nothing really all that unique. They call it egg static. It's an egg yarn. And with, with this fall season coming up for both trout and steelhead, I with guiding and everything, I have to produce a lot of eggs, and the stuff is literally just a little scud hook with a bead on it, and then 3 turns of the 8mm egg static, and you're good to go. And makes beautiful little eggs. Couldn't be simpler. So, yeah, they're 2 materials. I have a whole host of them. New materials that are coming out and that I really, really like. But that's 2 of them.
Yeah, I know Montana Fly Company. I've been seeing a ton of new stuff coming out from those guys too.
Yeah, and Falling Mill is another one. I've been working with Falling Mill for quite a few years now, and they have some of my patterns that are sold commercially, but they, only within the last few years have started selling materials as well. And their stuff, like their ultra dry yarn, is lights out. I mean, it's just beautiful texture, some translucency, a little bit of shimmer. It's treated with some, water resistant, whatever it is. And so floats well. You can use it for comparedon style wings and tails. It's just like a do-all material, really nice. Also, I got to give a little plug to their hooks as well. They're particularly their black nickel finished barbless series. Just a real sexy looking hooks, real nice bends and everything like that. Super strong, and like them a lot.
Yeah, very, very neat. And, you have to have some new tech gizmos in the background on the video side. Anything like that you want to share with folks?
Some yes and some no.
I understand.
I still am in the video production business. So some of this stuff we're going to keep quiet about that. But one of the, actually a couple of the new Sony cameras, the ZV-E10, amazing little camera for the money. If anybody's looking to do, maybe start doing tying videos or live presentations for the money, it's an incredible camera, very capable 4K. The other one, if you want to spend a little more money, it is the 6700. Does 4K 120 frames per second, which is just crazy for a small camera like that.
And you just have to pair it with a Mac Studio and you're in great shape, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they if the camera prices are dropping, then you need that fast machine, you need the big hard drives, really fast video cards, things like that. So they get you one way or another, but as compared to when I started Tightline Productions, Marvin, it's nothing. It's a pittance compared to what it was. And, back then, this is like 1997, 98, when we got started, a shoulder Sony Betacam was starting at $30,000. And so, even like a DV cam or something like that was, 15,000 with broadcast lens on it. So everything's just gotten smaller, better, cheaper, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I'll kind of pile on the ZV-10. I would say, what amazes me is the intelligence and the focus system, right? Particularly for like tying videos, right? To be able to sit there and like hold a pack of dubbing in front of the camera and then have it instantly come back and pop back on your face or on the vise is amazing. Yeah.
Some of the tech and you can see the stuff coming down the road too. It's just a matter of time. I started doing photography back when we were using light meters. They weren't even building cameras, it was all film and now everything is so automatic and I imagine the day coming fairly soon where all you're literally going to do is point the camera, compose your shot, and then you can probably adjust focus and depth of field and, anything to do with color or exposure in post, in Photoshop or if you're editing it in video, Final Cut or Premiere, something like that. But I think it'll all be handled digitally.
Yeah, and we'll stay out of talking about AI.
Yeah, please.
but a lot of people, Tim, are super familiar with your fly tying and all of your fly tying videos. But I think a lot of folks don't know that you spend, I don't know, gosh, probably 4 to 6 weeks a year on the road hosting trips. And, I was really kind of curious kind of how you got into the hosted travel game.
Yeah, it was, this is quite gosh, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. We really hadn't thought about hosted travel, and got a call from, it was then Andy's Drifters down in Argentina, in Patagonia. Now it's Set Fly Fishing. And that was really the first go at it. And Joan and I were like, I don't know whether we really want to do this or not, but they had us come down. I instantly fell in love with Patagonia, and we were still running multiple trips with them every year. And then, it kind of one thing led to another, and we're doing other trips as well. I hope to get back to that same place, Northern Rockies Adventures. We're going to be doing that. The other thing that I've always liked to do is I enjoy cooking a lot. And so we've started hosting kind of our own trips out in central Pennsylvania. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but it's a property. It's Wayne Harpster's property, and it's where Jimmy Carter and Rosalind fished throughout his presidency, and afterwards is very, very famous water on Spruce Creek. And so we're doing hosted travel out there where my son Drew and we can't really call it guiding. It's more just because the anglers are good and kind of on their own, but we'll facilitate with that. But we do all the cooking and all the meals for that. We do the same. We're just starting to do it up on Lake Erie, kind of right on the border between Pennsylvania and Ohio. And so, we did a show with for the new fly fisher last year, Captain Kurt Charters up there, and he's got some cottages, and so we're hosting and cooking up there this year, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's neat. And you're also out in Montana, right?
Oh, of course. Can't forget Montana. We've been doing trips with the Linahans, Tim and Joanne Linehan, up on the Kootenai River, up near Libby, Montana. And I think it's been about eight years maybe with them. And Tim's actually an old friend from my college days, totally having nothing to do with fly fishing. And I met Tim, I think, in 1979. And so it's kind of weird that we're both in the industry now, and it's weird thinking back, if you had some vision of the future where we're sitting up in a dorm at St. Lawrence and, you could go, hey, Tim, in 30 years from now, we're going to be doing trips together in Montana. I think we would have both gone, wow, that's incredible. So yeah, every year's great out there. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And so, one of the themes with all those trips is you're working directly with the outfitters as opposed to booking agents. And I was wondering if you could kind of share your thoughts on why you think that's a better approach, or a better approach for you, maybe.
Yeah, it's economics are a little better. It's kind of cuts out a person. And I also, I like working, directly with the outfitter. Just it's more personal. You can help tailor a trip to the anglers that you have. It's never the same group twice, really, and ability wise, or what they need, even dietary needs, and so there's a lot of work that goes into it for us anyway, working directly with the outfitter and trying to have them be ready and the program going for a specific group of people with specific needs.
Yeah, and so, you take, let's just say it's Joe Angler, and he's decided he wants to take a trip in 2025. what should someone who's considering, going on a hosted trip think about as they're trying to pick the right trip and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Marvin. And number one, and I hate to say this, is physical ability. It is really a big thing. And there's some trips that don't require much physical ability at all, which is wonderful. A lot of anglers are getting older, and wading in a fast moving stream with slippery rocks is difficult. It's even getting, I'm 63 years old. It's starting to get difficult for me in places that used to be no problem at all. And so, but we have people that still really want to fish, and mind's there, everything, but body's lagging behind a little bit. And so we need to know that before booking a trip, and there's things that we can do. There are trips that will work out well for folks like that, and we can steer them in that direction. And getting to know the people beforehand, and obviously ability as well. I'm not going to have somebody who's say an advanced novice fly fisher go down to Argentina with me and do a 6-day float on the Limay where you're casting 8-weight rods with sinking lines for 10 hours a day with big streamers. It's just not, it won't be enjoyable for them. And so, lead them into another trip, say one out at Linehan's where, you can be in a drift boat. There's very little to no waiting, and you're having a wonderful time catching a whole bunch of West Slope cutties and red band rainbows, and you're using just a 5-weight with a floating line and dry flies.
Yeah. And so, obviously, and it's funny, I won't make you tell me how people are really fishing. Like they'll tell you they're awesome and then you have to adjust it, right? Or anything like that. But, but you guys, so you kind of know it, right? You kind of size people up. But, what are some other kind of common mistakes that, potential travelers make or things that they don't consider? And I would imagine, physical ability is definitely one of them. Because I've heard horror stories of people that weren't up to it going into the jungles of Bolivia to chase Dorado, and it didn't turn out very well.
Yeah, it can be brutal, and it's just to probably second to the physical ability is just to try to keep an open mind when you travel, and particularly when you're traveling to foreign countries, the culture is different, and I think that people who embrace those cultures have a much better time than somebody that, say, is more resistant to that and may want to not impose, but go with their culture, their method of doing things, as opposed to kind of joining in with the culture of that country or that area. Even, I mean, it really happens in the United States here as well. And if you're, let's just say you're from New York City, maybe, and you're out west on a ranch or whatever, the culture is different out there, and the more you can kind of join in and go with the flow, I think the better time you're going to have. So that's a big one. Yeah, that's a real big one.
Yeah, it's a huge one. It's kind of funny because people, I've been on trips like that and people will complain. I was like, well, if you wanted it to be just like home, why did you go? Why did you leave? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Why are you spending all the money and all the travel and hassle that goes along with the travel and when you could do your own thing right on your home water? But yeah, that is a big thing. And I'm kind of the exact opposite. If I get into a different country, I'm one of those guys that it's not so bad that, every time I go to Montana, I strap on a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. I'm not quite that bad, but, traveling to Argentina, I've over the years, I've started drinking their local drink down there, mate, and trying to barbecue the way they do. It's helpless effort there. Just kind of adopting some of the culture, I think is is important, and it's fun for me to do anyway.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've got my mate hoof, my ox hoof on my desk here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost one of those things that didn't happen, because I get cranky if I don't have my afternoon mate.
Yeah, I would say I'll confess I just use mine to hold pens and pencils, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not for everybody. It's definitely an acquired taste. But yeah, I love the stuff. Can't get away from it.
Yeah. And, we talked about this when we were doing our pre-interview call that, one of the big things when you do host to travel is trip fit and group fit. And I know that's really important to you. And I was kind of curious, what do you do to maximize the chances that someone who travels with you gets on the right trip with the right people?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And a lot of this comes down to, it can be, depending on the year, depending on the trip, it can be difficult. Even though we promote real heavily, it can be difficult to fill a trip at times. And so, you don't always have the luxury of putting the right people together on the right trip. And their timing may not work out well, but there are a couple things that when you have people together on a trip that may not be exactly compatible. There are obviously some things that we're going to stay away from topically, politics, religion, stuff like that. And if I, as the host, I can steer them away from conversations like that, that just makes the trip more pleasant for everybody else. And so we really haven't had too many problems with that. I've been worried at the onset of a trip and go, oh my gosh, I guided this guy and I guided this guy. I don't know how they're going to get along together. And, it always shocks me. 2 days in, they're fast friends and, want to fish together every day. So, yeah, it kind of a free for all.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess the only thing I can say, and it's kind of the advice I would give when I would work with Project Healing Water guys and say, look at your day. You have to be honest about what you want out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people go on an entire trip and at the end they're like, I wish we had done this. And it's like, well, if you told them at the beginning, they probably would have moved heaven and earth to have that happen for you.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. At the beginning of a trip and during a trip, we're constantly, what else can we do? What do you need? If you're not feeling up to a full day of fishing, maybe we can get you a half day and go do something else for the afternoon. It's imperative that they enjoy the trip, and you need to know what they need to enjoy the trip. So
yeah. And the great thing is you and Joan also have options for non-anglers, which makes it easier sometimes for anglers to get out of the country and travel, right?
Yeah, that has been a huge thing for us, and is having because a lot of guys that they're married, kids are out of the house, and they want to go on a vacation, and they mention fishing, and maybe the spouse says, that's not going to work. We're going together, and I want to go to Europe instead, or whatever. And having the ability to have non-angling spouses or partners, whatever, come along has really helped with booking trips for us, and I think has made the trips actually a lot better. And the one we do with set fly fishing in Patagonia in particular is just it's worked out so well having non-anglers go. And to the point where, Joan and the non-anglers will come back. I've been out fishing with the anglers for the full day, and they describe at dinner what they did for the day. And I'm like, maybe I could drop a day of angling and go and hang out with those guys for a while, whether it's horseback riding with the gauchos or, a 7-course lunch in an organic farm, kayaking on the lake. It all sounds good. It all sounds fun. Love to do it sometime.
Yeah, it's and it's interesting too, because even if you work with a great lodge or an outfitter, I think that most people that kind of aren't in the industry have no idea how much work you and Joan put in kind of pre-trip, on the trip, and post-trip. And I was kind of wondering if you would kind of take us behind the curtain in the Land of Oz and tell us a little bit about what you guys do to make a trip a success.
Well, it really starts out with Joan. Anybody will tell you that I certainly married up way back when, and she's amazing on the phone and with potential guests and working with the lodge, and then putting the guests in contact with the folks at the lodge. And it is a whole lot of work on the phone. For me, it's, promoting either online or at the fly fishing shows. We're doing presentations either over Zoom or in person to TU chapters or fishing clubs all throughout the country. And I do have an advantage over most people who are booking trips in that I'm a video producer, and my son Drew is as well. And so we can produce video to help us sell the trips. And that makes a big difference. And, whether we're doing it over Zoom or at a fly fishing show, having potential guests get to see what the lodge looks like, see the quality of the fishing, the quality of the food, how we interact with the guides, the scenery, everything is a real advantage. In motion video kind of is, the way to go now with that. So in a nutshell, that's sort of the behind the scenes. It is a lot of work. And I think one of the things people don't understand is that it's constant. It's throughout the year. We're booking trips for 2026 and 2027 now. And so for a lot of people, these are trip of a lifetime. And 2 even 3 years in advance is what we have to do in terms of booking.
Yeah. And then, on the trip, I imagine, one, you're kind of, it's not all fishing for you, right? Because you're kind of being the policeman and the concierge, and you probably taking extra rods and extra gear and all kinds of stuff like that too, right?
Exactly. And yeah, I haven't fished in the front of a drift boat in years and years, if that tells you anything. It's about the guests first and foremost. And I'm there fishing. Fishing is honestly a small part of it for me. I love doing it. I love participating in it, but it really is about the guests having the best time possible. Yeah, even if that means me taking a day off and staying back at the lodge with somebody, maybe they're not feeling well or just want to hang out, something like that. Happy to do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's kind of funny. I was thinking, I think I fished with Andy's Drifters back in 2006, and I actually have my patch here on my recording table, and it's kind of amazing. I mean, like you, I've known Gustavo forever. Actually, I'll be sure to put a link to the interview I did with him. But, they've got a massive operation now under set where they're guiding Dorado plus everything kind of down in the traditional Patagonia region. What subset of that are you hosting with them?
Well, I have to back up a little bit because I've been doing trips with them at Spring Creek Lodge for quite a few years now. And I've also done different lodges with them for Golden Dorado up in northern Argentina, at the Iberá Marsh, which is just, if you ever have a chance to go, it's one of the most magical places I've ever been. I can't even describe what it's like up there. And the Dorado fishing is fabulous. Not necessarily the largest Golden Dorado, but they also have a program, Itatí Lodge on the Paraná River, and a new one, Jatu, which is back in another marsh that's off the Paraná. Incredible Golden Dorado fishing up there. Just wild, beautiful facility at Itatí. Incredible food. I won't spoil any of the surprises, but there are surprises throughout the trip that they do that just blow you away. Spring Creek Lodge down more, it's northern Patagonia, on the classic rivers, the Chimuine, Cajancoro, Mageo, Illumine, probably forgetting some. But the one, having done that trip for years and years, I always go at the end of their season. So April into May. It's getting to be Patagonia, late fall. And so they're kind of winding up for the season. And I talked to the guides, and it's like, you guys have been guiding for 6 months straight. What are you going to do? You're going to go home and you're going to hang out with the family for a while? Almost to a man, almost to a guide. They said, no, we're going to go fish the Limay Medio. And I'm like, what? Are you crazy? You've been guiding for 6 months and you're going to go fishing for a week-long float on the Limay? And it's like, yeah. So you hear that enough from enough guides, and you got to go for yourself. And I went for the first time last year, Marvin. It's a full 6-day float, camping on the river every night on my Medio. Gigundo brown trout, spectacular, kind of smaller browns and rainbows, but pretty much as many as you want. Dry fly fishing, even that time of year for them. But people go there for these just huge brown trout, big minnow eaters. It's a minnow hatch that happens down there, and that's kind of what you're chasing. And so that's an amazing trip. But I also know that they have probably a little out of my price range, but a heli fishing operation on waters that people have never fished, way up in northern Patagonia, and really accessible only by helicopter. So they got a lot going on.
And I would say the amazing thing is, to a man, they are super hardcore, right? Like, it's not like, it's not like the hand goes, we've had 8 hours, get your stuff, we're going home. I mean, they will literally fish until like you can't fish anymore. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to dog Gustavo out here because it's kind of a funny story. I'll abbreviate it, but I think it was my first year down there. It was like kind of an exploratory trip, and we're floating down. I hope it was a Chimuine. Pretty sure it was a Chimuine. And I was floating with Gustavo. He's the owner of Set Fly Fishing. It's a big operation, but he's also a guide. And so we're floating down, and he's kind of holding back on the oars, and the other boat is getting ahead of us by quite a bit. And he goes, we'll let those guys go out of sight. We're going to sneak in here because it's a place I know. And we got into this it was kind of a gravel bar with water dumping over it, and just full on mayfly hatch. And so I'm there shooting video, and I handed him my rod. I let him fish. I needed the video. But this is actually on my YouTube channel, video of this. Gustavo, in 1 hour, we timed it, 27 fish on dry flies in 1 hour. And honestly, he was like a little kid, like 15-year-old who just hooked his first dry fly fish. And watching him go to town fish and the smile on his face makes you realize that, big business, all that stuff aside, first of all, he's a great angler, great guide, and just thoroughly enjoys what he does, which is super important.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting too, right? Because your trips in Montana are kind of off the beaten path, even by Montana standards. So you're not down there, kind of in the thick of humanity in Southwest Montana.
Yeah. It's Northwest Montana, and it's a tailwater. The Libby Dam is huge, and they release water in a very angler friendly manner. Let's put it that way. And so when I go there, end of July, beginning of August, flows have generally kind of stabilized for the summer. They've been stepping down since runoff, and so it's really nice. I mean, it's cold water coming out of the Libby Dam, and we don't have to deal with hoot-owl restrictions the way a lot of other rivers and areas in Montana have to deal with at that time of year. So it's very, very dependable. And when I have guests come out there, you can be assured that they're going to be fishing each and every day because of the water conditions. And, very, very few other outfitters on the Kootenai. We see very, very few boats. Really a remarkable fishery. And I also got to say that Tim Linehan, he's another one. He and Joanna had the business for over 30 years now. And you get into the boat with Tim Linehan, and it's like you're with a little kid. It's like, again, and his passion, his enthusiasm for what he does, it's just contagious. You just can't believe that somebody, after that long, that many times down that river, would still get as wound up as he does about fishing it.
Yeah, that's super neat. And tell us a little bit about what makes, Spruce Creek such a special place that, what is it, 5 presidents have fished there, right?
Yeah, Spruce is interesting. For those that you don't know, it's a very small stream. It dumps into the little Juniata River, which is a spectacular fishery on its own. Wild browns, really great bug hatches. But Spruce it's just, presidents have fished there. I actually one time years ago was doing video work for someone else running trips there, and was pulling in the driveway at the lower property, and there was a car coming out, and there was a woman in it, and she pulled over like she wanted to talk, and I rolled down my window, and she rolled down hers. She looked very familiar, and I thought, maybe is she a friend of my mom's? It was about that age. And finally pulled down into the lodge, and Phil Gay, friend of mine who was running that trip, he said, did you see Sandy on your way in? And I said, who is that? She looks so familiar. It was Sandra Day O'Connor. She been at the lodge. And he goes, you're an idiot. Duh. But yeah, friend of my mom's. Sure, Tim.
There you go. So if folks want to get more information on your trips, Tim, where should they go?
We have a website. It's not the greatest website in the world, but tightlinevideo.com. And if nothing else, you can get an email address and get in touch with us through email, and you will most likely talk to my wife, Joan, rather than me. I'm kind of, as you mentioned, on the road a lot or out guiding, and just not especially accessible. I'm also not really good with a calendar, as it turns out. And so they can talk to her, and we'll get information out to you, and or set up a Zoom call if you're interested, and that way we can show video, or arrange to meet you at a fly fishing show, whatever you need.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, because I kind of watch you kind of out of the corner of my eye on social media. You probably are doing talks on the club circuit in New Jersey.
Yeah, well, New Jersey and elsewhere. When I travel, I'll often stop. Joan doesn't really let me have a night off. I don't know what that's about. And so even if I'm on my way somewhere, maybe out to fish the driftless, I'll have 1 or 2 talks that I give along the way. We did the tour out of the different clubs out in California this year. I think 10 different clubs. And so, yeah, we're kind of all over the place doing presentations.
Yeah. And I can't let you go without asking you to share your worst travel experience or disaster.
Well, it starts even before I got there. And it was my very first trip to Argentina. The folks at Then Andy's Drifters had invited me down, graciously invited me down, and I had prepared everything. I mean, just researched, little bit of video gear, fly fishing gear, all the stuff I needed for weather. And Joan took me to JFK Airport and brought everything up to the desk and went to check in for the flight, and my passport was 6 months out of date.
Ooh.
So in terms of travel nightmares, fortunately, again, the folks at SET were incredibly gracious and let me hold off for a couple days. I I don't know how much money we end up spending getting an expedited passport and going into New York for a day and getting it at the passport office there. And it actually wasn't so bad. We got to eat some great pizza in New York and got the passport. But yeah, if you are traveling internationally, folks, check your passport. The other thing that we've heard is that even if your passport has got 6 months left on it, there are countries that will not let you in, if you overstay your welcome, for example, and your passport expires. So, get a new passport, even if there's 6 months left on the old one.
Yeah, and then I would pile on and say, definitely buy the travel insurance and the health insurance too, right?
Yep. Yeah, especially, COVID era, things like that. It's the other thing is, to communicate, get a SIM card for your phone. That's a big one. Learn how to use WhatsApp. Amazing. When you have Wi-Fi, how clear and crisp it is, even on video calls. There's a lot to learn about travel.
Yeah. And so, Tim, before I let you go tonight, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
No, just really watch for us at we've got some new videos coming up, some stuff that not just fly tying, stuff on fly fishing as well. I will be at the International Tying Symposium here in New Jersey, in Somerset, another month or so, I guess, month and a half. And then Joan and I will be doing the whole fly fishing show circuit this winter. So from January all the way through to March. And then I just kind of am putting together the details. Now I'll be down at the Sowbug Roundup again this year, which was a ton of fun last year.
Yeah, I just saw that email.
Yeah, and this time I'm spending a couple of extra days, Marvin. I'm going to fish down there on the Norfolk and on the White, without a doubt. That was pretty brutal going down there, tying for a couple of days and going and seeing that water and not having time to fish. That's not going to happen again.
Yeah, that sounds like a good call. And so Tim, if folks want to follow your adventures kind of at the Vice, on the road and on the water, where should they go?
Well, Instagram and Facebook. Unfortunately, our Instagram account got hacked about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and we totally lost the account. And 100 and I don't know how many followers we had that we lost. So if you haven't heard from me on Instagram, you can find me on Instagram now. I believe the new one is Tightline Video. I hope that's right. And Facebook has been the same all the way through. Also on YouTube to find the tying videos, you can search on YouTube Tightline Video. It will get them all. All the videos are also available in the Orbis Fly Fishing Library, as well as the Midcurrent Fly Tying Library. So quite a few different places, and even on the Trout Unlimited National website.
And I will drop links to all that stuff in the show notes for you.
Oh, super, Marvin. I would appreciate that. Yeah, that losing that Instagram was a kind of it makes you realize how vulnerable you are with stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I told you, that happened to Tom at the Drake. And luckily he was able to, I think it was Cameron Mortensen at the Fiberglass Manifesto. He's in law enforcement in South Carolina, and he was able to help them find a solution. But I know you weren't quite so lucky.
Yeah. And you realize how much work it was, generating that following. And then in the blink, it's gone. And so, yeah, just be careful out there, guys. Don't click those funny links.
Yeah, and back up your data. 3, 2, 1. I'll say that too.
Yeah.
And so before I let you go, Tim, how many flies have you tied?
9 since we started, but I haven't been tying very fast. So
it's all good. It sounds like maybe they have a bead on them, right?
They do. Yeah. It's just, it's a bead and 3 turns of the egg static. And I've got yellow, orange, and kind of a pinky color done now. So, 3 each. It's such an effective fly. These are size 16s. We have low water here in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, so a little smaller, and they look really good.
Well, that's awesome. Well, listen, Tim, I super appreciate you carving some time out for me this evening.
Oh, no, thank you, Marvin. We've been trying to do this for a while. Glad we finally got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure our paths will cross on the show circuit.
Very good, sir. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the interview as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Don't forget to check out Trout Routes Pro at maps.troutroutes.com. Use ARTFLY20, ARTFLY20, all one word, to get 20% off of your membership. Tight lines, everybody.